Hi there and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're doing well. So I want to talk about native instruments behind me there. I know a lot of composers are talking about this at the moment. It's sad, isn't it? It's very sad because basically, for those of you who don't know, native instruments are, a very significant player in the sample library sort of universe, if you like. Now, composers, we all have to accept that unless you work for a magnificent company or you've got a bottomless pit of money, you can't just hire orchestras. It's just vastly expensive and not possible. So we as composers rely on sample libraries, and sample libraries have got amazing, the quality is outstanding, and I use them a lot, and I know other composers do as well. Some people mix and match between live musicians and sample libraries, and they blend really well together. The problem we have now is native instruments have gone into insolvency. So clearly they have a lot of financial difficulties, which means that officials have had to step in and evaluate really what to do next. But essentially they don't have enough money coming in to cover the amount of money that needs to go out to pay their debts. And so the company now is in this kind of rocking sort of motion as people go in and try and sort it out. Now, I don't know the full details of it, and I'm certainly no technical whiz when it comes to the legal matters, but I think the reason why a lot of composers are talking about it is because one of the things that native instruments are responsible for, and which we use a lot as composers, is contact. Now, contact it's a bit hard to explain. It's a kind of a player. It's like a hub, if you like, where a lot of your sample libraries live and work. And you use contact quite a lot to house your libraries, and a lot of people that make sample libraries will specifically make it for contact. So you would need contact in order to actually play the sample library itself. Now, more and more companies are starting to build their own dedicated plugins so that you don't have to use contact. I know Spitfire Audio, they do. So they kind of jump ship probably just at the right time, because they're not really affected because they have their own plugin and they're sort of independent from that. But the contact is very much tied into the native instrument ecosystem, to which millions of composers are also tied in. Now, at the moment, the kind of the day-to-day business running for composers of using their sample libraries and using contact is unaffected at this point in time. But of course, we don't really know what's going to happen next. We don't know if native instruments is going to be taken over, and in which case, if they are taken over, what impact that will have, because clearly there's going to be some restructuring that's going to be needed. Budgeting is going to be very different, and it might just mean that native instruments then no longer offer things in the way that they used to. And it's really sad. It's really sad, because I guess we all become somewhat reliant on that ecosystem. And whilst it's not the end of the world, and people will adapt, I think it's just concerning. And one of the things that I wanted to discuss today is it's this idea that we don't own anything physically anymore, do we? And this applies to many different things, video games, movies. It's this idea that ownership, what constitutes ownership? Essentially when we play a video game, we're not really owning the video game unless we've bought a physical edition of it, but we're sort of owning a license to play it. And owning a license is somewhat more vague, isn't it, really, because there's nothing physical there. You're not holding on to something with your own two hands. And in the instance of, say, contact, what happens if, for instance, contact can no longer be used? What impact does that have on everybody's sample libraries, which are dependent on contact? And whilst I'm not saying that that's necessarily going to be the case, we don't know the future for native instruments. Now, it could be that private equity investors kind of come in, which can be problematic in itself, because then you've got kind of lots of people grabbing a piece of the pie, if you like, and not necessarily looking at the best interests of the company. Yes, financially they're looking at how to make money, but for the consumer it may not best suit us. So we're in this kind of limbo land at the moment, where I use Contact pretty much exclusively for all of my sample libraries, which are then used for my recording work. And, obviously at the moment, everything works, everything's fine, but it's just not knowing, isn't it, that, something could happen where you find yourself, for instance, having your Contact working, but perhaps maybe not being able to update or upgrade, or there being some kind of roadblocks that prevent you from having this kind of smooth workflow that we all strive for as composers. So I wanted to get your thoughts really. Are you a composer? Do you feel worried about this? Do you think that this is highlighting the concern really that many have said about this idea of ownership? What do we own and what do we have as a license? Do we truly own anything, or is it really just on loan to us, in terms of a license? And what happens when that license can't be honored anymore? So it'll be good to get your thoughts. Some people are saying, look, don't panic. Other people are being a bit more doom mongering about it and implying that it's a disaster. And I don't know how I feel. I'm kind of on the fence at the moment, trying to get more detail. But one thing I would say is that it came as a bit of a shock to me. Native Instruments is an ecosystem that I'm familiar with and I use, well, probably for about 2/3 of my musical output. And it makes me worried that perhaps, it's not going to be so easy in the future to do so. But we will have to see. We'll have to see what details come out in the future. But for now, let me know in the comments how it affects you. And I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Take care.